What's up, guys? Coming at you from Shenzhen, China, as usual, with my big cup of tea, which is almost finished. And I am obviously stationary this time. I'm not going out to drive around and show you the streets because I am, and I have been kind of restricting my traveling outside to necessary events. For example, if I've got an errand to run or I've got to go to the grocery store. And what I should probably do is, because I've got a lot of new subscribers coming into my channel from my coronavirus update videos, I should probably just briefly introduce myself. I'm a Canadian who's been living here in China since 2008, part of that time in Hong Kong, but most of it in mainland China. And coincidentally, during the 2008-2009 kind of swine flu scare period, I was quarantined here in Shenzhen. So I've got a little bit of an inside look at kind of how these mechanisms work here. And I am posting mostly positive content about China because that's how I legitimately feel about China. And for the time that I was living in China, I wasn't necessarily very, anti-China or pro-China, so to speak. But seeing kind of over and over this narrative that's going on overseas about China kind of pushed me to say, you know what, somebody's got to tell the other side of the story. And especially because a lot of the stuff that's going on out there is kind of exaggerations or just total fabrications. And I've had a lot of foreign friends who also live here in China who reached out to me and said, thank you for putting this content out there. And I tell them, I say, well, why don't you come on camera and tell your story also? And they said, no. Being positive about China is not popular. And they're right, but I don't mind because it's been a really interesting kind of experience to just see the mindset of people. And, as an example, yesterday's video where I spoke about thanking some of the people on the ground here who are putting themselves at risk as part of the eradication efforts or just so that we can continue to buy our groceries and stuff like that. There were a lot of people who took more of an issue of me praising those people than they did of me mentioning Wilbur Ross, the Commerce Secretary in the U.S., who said this virus in China is going to be great for the U.S. economy. And it was just mind-boggling. And I think obviously a lot of people's perspective comes from what they think is going on in China and a lot of the narrative that's going on. And I'm more active on Twitter in that regard in terms of dispelling some of those rumors. But, that also is quite an interesting experience because it doesn't matter how many times we've been lied to in the West about what's going on in a country to either, suit a particular agenda, sometimes going as far as obviously invasion. People don't get to a point where they're like, okay, hold on a second, I've heard this stuff before. They just kind of take it for face value. And there's a phrase, right, which says, before you engage your enemy, you must first villainize them. Otherwise, how are you going to live with yourself? And I think that's kind of what's going on. And maybe people just really want to believe it. But, I don't want to talk about that too much because I'm going way too off topic. We're going to talk about the coronavirus here in China, on the ground, what's going on, what's the feeling. So there's definitely a feeling of concern. I've been watching the numbers every day to see the percentage increase, to see if it's compounding at an increasing rate. And yesterday we saw a pretty big jump. Was it like 3,000 confirmed cases or somewhere around there? And so the percentage is going up. It really is spreading. And I know some people who are working on the ground in relation to these efforts, and I reached out to them and I said, so we're at, what is it, like 17,000 confirmed cases now. And I asked them, I said, do you really believe that number? Do you think it's accurate? I mean, we're hearing, all the people I know, they don't know anybody personally who's been affected by it, but you hear these cases popping up all around us. There's a few not too far from us. And they said to me, yes, I believe those numbers are accurate. However, there are two other sets of numbers that we all know about here. One is the suspected cases, kind of more immediately suspect, which I think is 40,000 or somewhere around there. And then there's an even more broad number of suspected cases, which include people who are implicated by being around people who are confirmed to have coronavirus. And that number's huge. That's like 200,000 or something like that. So they did say, though, that they think a lot of those numbers are going to turn into confirmed cases, which is really concerning. Here in Shenzhen, we had, I think it was 30 new cases confirmed yesterday. And the three particularly concerning cases were people who they can't trace any link to anybody in Wuhan. They didn't go to Wuhan themselves. One is an older lady who's not really cooperating with answering any questions about where she went. Another one is of a lady who went out to a restaurant. And one of the most concerning ones to me is a delivery guy. And the reason that's concerning to me is because as he's delivering stuff to all of these homes, whether it's a box or a bag or something like that, if he's putting his germs on this stuff and then the people in these homes that he delivered to then touch that, and become contaminated by those germs, it's obviously a really big concern, especially considering we're not going to see the effect of that until potentially 14 days later. So that's a really big concern. And on the brighter side, the numbers have shifted, where before in the beginning we were seeing more fatalities than recoveries, but we're seeing more recoveries than fatalities now. And so that's a little bit encouraging, but overall the numbers are increasing at an alarming rate. And it definitely begs the question, in terms of no matter what kind of efforts are going on here, like our shops still aren't open, the schools aren't going to be open, our kids are going to receive their work at home from the school. And, they're controlling things pretty well here, but it seems like no matter what, this is going to increase. And now, granted, there were some estimates saying that these couple of weeks is going to be the peak before it starts to kind of burn out and run down. But then there's also reports from, I believe it was the Lancet, that said the peak is not going to be until April, and that's going to be pretty serious. And in that regard, it made me think of something. And I know this is a weird thing to say, but if this is really going to spread and there's nothing we can do to stop it, and almost everybody's going to kind of come in contact with this virus, the people who caught it early are way luckier, when you're faced with the realization that if everybody's going to get it. And the reason is because one of my biggest concerns is when this really hits is how overwhelmed the hospitals are going to be all over China, and whether there's going to be enough spaces for everybody. Whereas those early cases, they've kind of got it out of their system and they've already fought it. Of course, there's a chance for mutation and maybe they can catch it again in terms of that. But I can't help but kind of think about that. Now, in terms of what else is going on, they're spraying the garden down here where I live every day. The elevators, they smell like Dettol all the time. There's kind of a bleach. They covered the buttons with a cling film, which they replace every day. And generally speaking, everybody's doing what they can, and hopefully it turns out to be enough. But there's some numbers that look encouraging and some that don't look very encouraging. So we just got to hope for the best. I do want to say all of my videos on YouTube have been demonetized related to coronavirus. And in the beginning, I was like, what the heck? But after I thought about it, I actually kind of think it's a good thing, because when you look at the content that's out there, the conspiracy theories, the people who don't even live in China and don't have any qualifications on this topic, how many views they can rack up. And if they're motivated by the ad revenues of that YouTube video, it kind of just gets people coming out and giving people what they want. And so from that sense, if YouTube is kind of overwhelmed with coronavirus content creators, and they don't know who's kind of just playing the system for ad revenues, maybe they just said, okay, that's it. Everybody's cut off. Anybody who's talking about coronavirus is cut off, because I've heard from a lot of other people who have had their videos demonetized also. Now, there are some people doing some really great stuff on YouTube also. One of my favorite is Dr. John Campbell, I believe it is. I'll link his YouTube channel in the description. And he's a little bit slower paced, but you can tell he really knows what he's talking about, and he goes through great detail to prove what he's talking about. And it's kind of unfortunate that he's a little bit more slower paced, because the guys who are really sensationalizing their content, and they're giving people what they want in terms of entertainment value, they are getting more views. And there's sometimes is a disconnect between people who know how to play the game in terms of entertainment value and those who just really know their stuff. And the guys who really know their stuff tend to sometimes be a little bit more kind of, less entertaining overall. There's, of course, exceptions to the rule. One of my favorite people to listen to is Neil deGrasse Tyson. And he knows his stuff, he knows his facts, and he's one of the most entertaining presenters I know of. And I mean, at least personally speaking. But the sensationalized content is definitely going to capture people more. And that, although I'm kind of happy about coronavirus videos being demonetized, there was another thing that kind of undermined that, because I made a video where I deliberately made the title to just see how it would work, where I spoke about the coronavirus as a coronavirus apocalypse update. And of course, if you view the video, there's nothing that I said that painted the situation as apocalyptic. But yesterday, that's the video that YouTube decided to feature of mine and brought a lot of people in. And I guess it tied into the algorithms of saying, okay, this is what people want to hear or see, is, content that's really hyped up. And it kind of undermines their efforts in terms of demonetizing videos to prevent that kind of sensationalism. So and it ties into what I'm saying about what's going on. So you guys have to be really vigilant about that stuff and really take note on who's really trying to play you here. Because even though these videos are demonetized, talking about coronavirus, no matter you're like I said, you're not here or you don't have any qualifications, is something that gains a lot of views, and they can still kind of gain subscribers off of it. So definitely keep aware about that. Now, what else is going on? There's probably a bunch of other stuff I'm forgetting, but what I'll do is I'll try to think about it, and then, because I'm going to do some more updates, and I'll pop it in the next video if I can think of it. But you know what I'll do is I'll wrap this up by letting you talk to my 8-year-old to see how he perceives this situation from the perspective of a child. So that might be interesting. Let's get him out here, and I'll catch you guys next time. What's going on? How you feeling?
Feel bored at home.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're going to have to do your schoolwork from home pretty soon, yeah?
Yeah, I already started it.
Well, that's your homework, right? The actual assignments haven't started yet.
Yeah.
So with how lazy you usually are with your homework, are you worried when you get your full assignments that you're going to be able to do it right or do it well?
I'm not sure.
So how do you feel about the whole situation? Are you worried about it?
I'm not sure because I don't really know what's going on.
Yeah? You
Yeah.
just know it's like a flu, that kind of a virus that's going around.
Yeah, and there's many people that are cured and killed.
Yeah. How do you feel about? So what do you think the most important things we got to do to stay safe?
Probably just like stay inside, and every time if we have to go out, wear a mask, and every time when we come back, wash your hands, don't touch your face or rub your face with your clothes.
Yeah. Yo, you remember that video I did with you last time? When I got back into editing, I saw you were touching your face, even your eyes, quite a lot, eh?
Yeah, because that was before Mommy showed me the video of what we have to keep safe from the coronavirus.
Oh, yeah. So now we're all aware. But pretty bored though, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once I get to play the iPad.
Yeah. All right. Well, hopefully this is all over soon, eh?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Say bye.
Bye.